Harriet, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Harriet. I'm a paid media director at Launch. And I'm going to go rogue and give you two favourite biscuits. Because,
oh my God.
No, but there's a division between like an individually wrapped biscuit and a packet of biscuits.
Okay.
So hands down, best packet of is a chocolate digestive, but with caramel in it. Yeah. And an orange club. Nothing else needed.
Yeah.
He's saying.
Wagon wheel.
Neringa.
Hi, I'm Neringa Rachkovskaite. Don't bother to remember my last name, nobody does. I represent the Natural Adventure independent hiking and cycling company. I'm a marketing director in there, and I was warned about the biscuit question. Yesterday I was pressured to bring an international spin on it. Like some very exotic biscuit. But I came back to my hotel and I forgot about it. And the first thing I remember this morning when I woke up was wagon wheels. And as a foreigner, I actually doubted myself. I was like, is it a biscuit? Is it not? So I Googled, and Google said yes. So Becky, it is a biscuit, and it is my favorite. So I have to remember to buy some before I leave.
Yes, we know who we are. I'm Joe, head of conversion, chocolate rounds.
We have got, by the way, today, a box of Freddos. And again, the cost of living crisis seems to be escaping Launch because they are caramel Freddos. Did you know that was a thing? Caramel Freddos. So, I mean, even if you don't eat all the lunch that's there, go and grab a caramel Freddo for God's sake. Travel is clearly back on the map. Did you see what I did there? And there's this rise of this kind of post-pandemic rise for travel experiences. And I do think it's really important we learn from other sectors, which is why we're focusing on travel for this. So let's see how this sector approaches marketing. Neringa, you've been working in the travel industry for over 7 years now. Tell me about what this post-COVID era is seeing, what trends you're seeing, and how things are working for you.
Yeah. So, I mean, things are going great this year. I think it's safe to say that travel is definitely back. We've seen a return. Many companies are reporting on numbers of pre-pandemic levels or even higher. Same what's happening at the Natural Adventure. So things are looking positive, and also we've seen the sort of return of the usual customer behavior that we've seen pre-COVID. So to give a bit of a context to what it means, like in travel we have very clear booking patterns, which is in the UK it looks like this. So January, Christmas is over, New Year is over, people get slightly depressed, so they start looking for new things to look forward to, and this is when a lot of people book travel. So they plan in January, they plan travel for the rest of the year, and this peak sort of continues for 2 to 3 months, and then we see a decline and then a sort of slight pickup towards the autumn, and then January again. Things were very different in COVID. There was no patterns really, like there was no seasonality thing, there was no time when people book. Really, everything was affected by local restrictions, border closures, new variants coming in. So it's really hard to compare pandemic years to now. Like even last year, when half of the year I would say it was already like post-pandemic year, still we can't really compare it because January 2022 was our worst month of 2022, and the peak was in April, May and June. So it was very, very different story to the usual patterns. And then this year we saw a return of sort of like the usual January to and then sort of declining. So it's, if we compare it year on year, we see that there is a big improvement and travel is definitely back, but comparing month on month is a bit more challenging. So yeah, and we're expecting it to be sort of back to normal next year too, like to have a proper booking patterns with perhaps some abnormalities here and there.
How about last minute bookings, and are you seeing a rise in that? In fact, I think that's something you mentioned, Harriet.
Yeah, definitely. I think I was going to add to that. I think post-COVID, yes, we're in this sort of kind of back to normality, but normality is different to what it was 2019 and before, and I think people are definitely booking a lot more last minute. That sort of confidence to book further in advance is slightly dwindling, and I think what surprised us working together definitely this year is like last minute UK bookings. We're kind of used to that. We've got our campaigns ready to go to support that. But where historically we've seen, so we're marketing in the US and in Australia as well, primarily for European trips, we're seeing those travellers typically book a lot further in advance. It's a bit more of an investment. It's a bigger trip to come to Europe from further away. We're getting last minute bookings through Aussies and Americans at the moment, and we're having to adapt very quickly what we're doing to sort of support that. We sort of launched our marketing back into the US a bit recently, ready for bookings for 2024, and they're booking for November. And we're sort of, it surprised us a little bit, but it's definitely changing.
When that surprising data comes through, what do you do with that data? How does that work?
So I suppose we just adapt, right? Like we take some learnings and then we adapt our creative, we adapt the messaging, and make sure that we're catering for what people are searching for. So yeah, as Harriet mentioned, our plan was to push 2024, really promote that. But as we see a demand for 2023, why not add that in our messaging and creative too?
Nice. And what strategies are you going to be adopting this peak season? And what are you expecting this peak to do?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, like we are expecting the peak to be our usual pre-pandemic peak. So in the UK, starting in January, and mainland Europe too, and then North America, Australia, probably Cyber Sale onwards. But as a lot of people mentioned today, if we start working on peak in the peak season, it will be way too late. So the preparation has already started at Natural Adventure. We have already started preparing for this peak season with big brand awareness campaigns. In the past, we used to rely a lot on paid search and one channel approach, it's not going to work anymore. Competition is huge. We have really aggressive targets to hit, so we have to stand out somehow. So this year we are investing a lot more in brand awareness, lead generation. Content is key, so we are focusing on video. We completely revived our blog, like organic social channels, added new paid channels too. And this is something that we can't see immediate return on investment. We know that we're going for long term, but we're confident that when this key booking season comes, we'll be ready and we'll be under a lot of new customers' radar.
So you've been preparing a lot of that in advance.
Yes.
And then how does the work with Joe feed into that? In fact, Joe, can you talk about that?
Yeah, so as Naringa said, we've been trying to sort of take a long-term view of improving the website, and part of that was doing a big user testing project earlier this year, which was the aim of which was to try and understand how people, essentially what booking process they have, at what point they visit the website and what they're doing on the website for those different objectives. So people who are in their early phases of planning a holiday, they might not necessarily have planned their exact destination, but they might know vaguely which country they want to go to. At that point, when they're on the website, they're looking to be kind of inspired, and a lot of that is to do with the rich imagery that you provide. So like essentially making that imagery as good as possible and displaying it front and center so that people can be, I guess, wowed by that. And then they've got that inspiration. At that point, they might plan a bit further. They might try and book their flights, and then when they're coming back, at that point they're really information hungry and they're really interested in finding out what the detail is of exactly what that booking is. So how many days it is, exactly where they're going to be staying, even down to the safety features of any equipment they're going to be doing, if the equipment is there to hire. So really detailed stuff. So we've taken the approach of trying to sort of do deep listening and deep learning from those users so that we can implement some changes on the website and do some A/B testing as well.
And that starts well ahead of peak to be able to then capitalise on it in peak. So what will be your strategy for, are you going to monitor the traffic then over the peak period?
Yeah, so I guess we have the best chance as well of A/B testing during that time of high traffic. So we'll essentially have A/B tests ready and live on the site so that we can take advantage of all those conversions and all that traffic so that we can put more data through those tests and try and get some conclusive winning tests. That's the plan, but also, as you were mentioning earlier, just having passive tracking on the site that we're collecting data through for something like Microsoft Clarity, which allows you to understand where people are clicking, what they're scrolling, what they're doing, and that information we're then going to use for a project to look at the navigation. So it's all kind of feeding into each other, but especially during the peak season, it's looking to sort of harness that deluge of data for A/B testing and data gathering for user testing.
So then, Harriet, on the paid media side of things, what are some of the common pitfalls that you're seeing, and what kind of metrics are you looking at?
I think one of the biggest mistakes people make, especially within the travel industry, is looking at the wrong metrics. I think because it's not like the e-commerce side of things that Danny was talking about before, where you're sort of, if it's a low ticket item, you're going through, you're reading about it, it's a pair of socks, £5, great, buy. Like, there's a much longer research consideration period before you're then going on to commit to this sort of £3,000 trip or more. And so what we've sort of between us been starting to look at together is moving away from ROAS and looking more at what we're calling marketing efficiency rate or ratio. I can't remember. I can't say MER without like putting on a silly voice, so I'm not going to say it.
I did it for you.
But essentially what that means is like we're not looking at what we're spending through these platforms and what bookings are being driven on an attribution model from these platforms. It's looking at the Natural Adventures total business revenue they've got coming through, because we know that the spend we're putting through, whether it's Google, we're investing in Pinterest, we're investing in Meta, that is all building this consumer journey towards that final purchase, where they come direct, because the work we've done with that media budget in the past like 4 or 5 months really, in that whole consideration, discovery, development piece is then materialising in a booking through a brand search. And it's just about having more of a heuristic approach and looking at it as a bigger picture and understanding the impact of that spend, rather than saying this click drove this booking.
Is that I was going to say.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, especially I guess in our industry, the product is expensive. If you are buying a £1,000 trip, you're not gonna click through ad and directly purchase it. You need to have so many interactions with the brand. So that's why looking at the full picture really helps, like, because it gives a way more accurate result how efficient your efforts are.
And is that a change in shift post-pandemic for you? Is this a new way of looking things? If you had to change that marketing vision?
Yeah, I would say so. I think we started doing it during the pandemic still, because the budget was so small and we really had to measure like every pound, like make sure that everything is as efficient as possible. So this is how we started working with Harriet. And it worked really well, so that's why we continued this practice after the pandemic as well.
So the kind of confidence grew and the trust grew.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting there that what I just said there isn't to say we don't work to a ROAS. We do. Like within Google Ads, we are working with ROAS-based campaigns, but we've taken the data based on how many bookings we're getting through, total bookings, and worked out roughly what percentage of those are coming through paid, and then we can manipulate that data to understand what our target ROAS should be in order to hit their maximum target ROAS across the whole business. So there's a lot more going on behind that rather than just sort of like splashing the cash.
So we've looked at common pitfalls, but what do you think that the biggest opportunity is this peak season for travel? Neringa, if I come to you first on that.
Yeah. I think perhaps one of the things that we are doing differently this season is video, and a lot of people talked about video again this time, and it's so important in our industry. Travel is so visual, so it's very important to inspire people. And I suppose a lot of travel companies do video, so you have to look at also like some creative approach, like different creative approaches to stand out. So what we chose to do this year is like, rather than doing what everyone is doing, we try to have some different strategies when it comes to our content creation and shoots. So instead of, for example, we had a couple of shoots this year when we involved our real customers in them. So instead of having like actors or staff or some random people that involved in shoots, that is a very common practice in our industry, we actually opened it up to real customers to have that real feedback. Somebody who's actually loyal to the brand is your ambassador coming and talking to you about your brand. And it's so important. The the content we got out was, the best way to describe this, imperfect, but at the same time is so genuine, and it's very, very different. And I think especially now with this AI age when everything is like so perfect and flawless, I think it's really special to have this like human connection, and that really stands out.
Yeah, and I think that feeds really nicely into sort of some of the things we're starting to test this Q4, primarily with Pinterest, to be honest with you. It's where we're sort of testing the new things, because it's a slightly new platform to you guys as well. Being agile with what they have, sort of using their trend reports and being agile with their moments campaigns. So this is something that we're starting to roll out across a couple of clients, where we have this sort of bank of content that Naringa and the team have provided, which is fantastic. And like you said, it's that sort of rough and ready, kind of user generated, not too polished brand stuff. And within the Pinterest platform, you can essentially understand what is trending across sort of a 2-3 week period, so we can then be really agile in terms of, we've got this content and we can see what's trending within the travel industry and essentially repurpose that for whatever's coming through. And it's about monitoring that every sort of 2 to 3 weeks and just like refreshing what's going on in line with what trends are coming out through peak, because you think you know what's coming through peak, and like you think you know where people want to go, and you think you know where last minute bookings are coming from, but you don't. And it's actually surprising and very useful to see what comes out of Pinterest and then be able to jump on those bandwagons, I guess, and push that content out.
Nice, a data-led approach. I love that.
Nice.
Ian will be pleased about that. Joe, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, just a short thing. So this kind of goes back to what Ryan was saying earlier about, if in a world where you can test anything, where should you begin and what should you test and what should you change on your website? We have started to adopt a page template by page template approach, where every month we will essentially bring all of the data that we have on a specific page template, for instance, of the holiday listing page or the search results page is what we've done most recently, and we'll gather data points from user testing, from heat mapping, from GA4, and then from competitors as well, and we'll bring all of that together to look at this page through that lens, because otherwise it's just too overwhelming looking at the whole website and trying to figure out where to start. So we'll bring all of that data and we'll try and essentially do a page tear down and say, well, where are the biggest opportunities and where is the evidence leading us to think these are the biggest improvements, to try and move us away from gut feel and hunches and so-called best practice, because that can sometimes be misleading too. So we've adopted that approach of just doing focusing in on one page at a time and trying to be led by the data, and then approaching that from, well, if we, in a world where we can do anything, let's redesign that page and imagine what that could be based on that evidence, and then test that. So that's something we've been doing recently.
Nice. Are there any other trends or things that you'd like to share before I go to questions?
The only thing I was going to add was sort of, we've been saying already, like planning for peak, like we're in peak already and the preparation has already started. And I think especially from the natural adventure point of view, it's that lead generation piece as well. So before we start going into cyber sale, whether it's in the US or in the UK or whatever, it's that value offering before to bring people into your database. So whether it's through Pinterest, we're running lead gen ads, through Meta, we're running lead gen ads, like giving people a value offering to come and sign up to a newsletter, to be the first one to know about things. So you're building out your first party data that you can then nurture through, that's then ready to book, whether it is January, whether it is November, and especially cookieless buzzword, like we need to be, that first party data is so important. We need to be bringing those people in now and not in on the 1st of January because it's too late.
So you're basically saying that our marketing team should have done this event in March. That's what I'm hearing. Buzzword bingo, I did see some inverted commas, just in case. I think that gets you double points. That's amazing insight, and I'd really like to have a bit more time for questions here. So here we go. Mike with the mic, me with the mic. Who's got a question for the team up here? Nice.
No, not him.
Oh!
We know from several clients that many travelers it takes 20 to 30 sessions actually before the booking is happening. On the other hand, we see that all the many information that the user leaves with us, all the indications where he wants to go, what kind of trip he wants to take and so on, is by most providers, by most travel companies, ignored, and they keep delivering the same stuff. They are not refurbishing the online experience with every session to be more focused on that. What is the big handicap to see more personalized user experiences, especially when we are looking into a business where people are actually leaving so many traces from session to session? Why isn't it happening? What is the roadblock?
So personalization.
It's very topical because we went to an event yesterday which was all about that. But yeah, so I mean, taking personalization, it kind of is a broad spectrum, isn't it? Sometimes of where you can essentially how personal are you being with that customer, and how much are you taking into consideration their history, but also their needs and their wants. So I think even at sometimes it's a bit of a scary word, personalization, because it can make people feel like they're going to need to invest in a multi-million-pound piece of software which is going to take a long time to implement. It's going to be really difficult. But one thing that came up yesterday was that it's best to start somewhere, and sometimes that start is just making sure that your page is as customized to that exact persona as possible. So if you haven't done that work to begin with, in terms of looking at who are your target users, how are they different from each other, what's the difference between someone who is in market for a, say, active holiday, whereas someone who's in market for, say, a pilgrimage holiday, and how do those needs differ, and how do those wants and sort of need states demand a different approach. So I think doing that groundwork would be a good start. But I think maybe the biggest blocker is that people just find it too overwhelming potentially, and they think it's a big ask, and they might be a bit scared.
Harriet, we were talking about personalisation with a client earlier this week about skincare and how different age groups might react.
Yeah.
So you can do it on the media side. It doesn't even need to be website-based as well.
Yeah, we were talking about how to market the same product to two different audiences in a different way and get them essentially through to the same end goal. So looking almost like splitting your audience in half and saying, what does this audience need from this product, and what does this audience need from this product? It's the same thing. It does the same thing at the end of the day, but these two audiences are coming in for very different reasons, and it's about being strategic with how you run your campaigns and how whether it is changing. We even spoke about changing the landing page and giving different messaging. Same product does the same thing, but different ways of presenting that product to meet the needs of those two audiences.
Nice. Narenga has come all the way from Morocco today, so I think we need a question for Narenga. Who's got a question for me?
Is single customer view and the use of experience platform something that you feel for you guys as an industry or yourself as a company that can be useful or can become a company drain perhaps? What was your point of view on that? Single customer view and experience platform. I got braces, so I got lisp, so just
So I'm going to be really stupid. I'm going to say, what do you mean by single customer view? I'm not in the platform anymore.
Taking that specific journey of every single person that come to the website and then personalize every comeback of that person to your website in order to achieve a return of investment faster or perhaps closing booking faster in your case.
It is a big challenge for us, I have to say. I suppose it's all down to resources as always, right? So for us, I don't think we are there yet necessarily at the Natural Adventure. However, what we do tend to do, and I guess it sort of aligns to the question previously, how do you personalize when you have very limited resources? Like for us, we search what is common things in our customer to make sure that everything that you do is sort of fits that your target customer. So it doesn't matter about the age and demographics, whatever. It's about what they need, their interests, and who they are, rather than any other factors.
Nice, and that kind of limited resource thing is a real thing for we're cost of living crisis with the great redundancy. Resources is challenging. Adam, you're all about the questions today.
I've got like a million, but
go on.
I'll find them afterwards. I'm just wondering. Again, let's mention the B Corp bits and pieces and how the carbon conscious movement has obviously affected travel. I'm really interested to see or hear what that has meant for your customers and their buying habits? Has it been has it affected it?
Yeah. I mean, it's probably fair to say that a lot more customers now are thinking about sustainability when it comes to travel. However, as sad as it sounds, the priority is still not there. We haven't seen that yet. Priority is still price, dates, itineraries, and then sustainability is often the last thing that people would consider when they are comparing different products. However, despite us not being a B Corp, we do feel that we are contributing towards the climate change, and travel industry is a big contributor. So all of us carry responsibility. So even though it might not be something that customers are specifically looking for, and that will be our competitive advantage, we have to do it despite that. So that's always in our mind, and we like whenever we work with local providers, we need to make sure that we are choosing the right partners and like go through our supply chain. We encourage a lot of customers to use rail travel instead of flying, and that's constantly communicated through our website, especially if you are traveling to Europe from UK. We are providing a lot of resources for people to book that train journey rather than fly. So I think there is little things that we can do, and there's big things that we can do as well. So even though the customers wouldn't necessarily search for it, we carry responsibility to make sure it's happening.
Amazing. Well, let's give another massive round of applause. That was a brilliant panel. Thank you.